Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make my fluffy donuts, and you can also learn this without any hassle. To start, you want to get your food scale. Make sure you set it to 0. When you put the bowl on it, it's going to measure the bowl, but make sure you just reset it to 0 by pressing the power button. We're going to measure out 1000 grams of flour for this recipe. I like to sieve my flour. It makes it airier and fluffier. So once we're done, we're going to move on to the next phase. That's measuring our milk. I prefer milk over water because it helps to achieve a classic, soft, rich, and melt in your mouth texture, similar to bakery style donuts. So if you have some milk, you might be better off than water. For my butter, I like to use unsalted butter. We're just going to be using 100 grams for this recipe. Now we're going to use some salt. Salt balances sugar, so make sure you have some salt in your recipe. We're going to be using just 6 grams of salt for this recipe. Vanilla essence, it's optional, you don't have to use it, but I like to use some in my recipe as well. I'm going to be using just 1 tablespoon, which is 15 grams. 3 eggs are also advised. You can use 2, you can use 4. It just depends on how much you want to put in your donuts. I find 3 to be a great balance for 1000 grams of flour. Sugar is a very important part of baking. If you put too much, it could spoil your donuts. If you put less, your donuts could be tasteless. For this recipe, we're going to be using 180, which is a great balance. Powdered milk is optional, but I like to put it in my donuts. There's nothing like too much milk. It just makes the donuts so fluffy. Now for my yeast, I use just 15 grams for this recipe. The lesser the yeast, the better for you. You're better off using lesser yeast and letting it proof for longer. So now we're done measuring. We have our flour, we have our milk, that's our liquid milk. We have some eggs, that's 3 eggs, vanilla essence. We have our milk, powdered milk, salt, that's our yeast, butter, and then finally our sugar. So for my milk, I'm going to be heating up my milk and I'm going to put the egg in it. I just want it lukewarm. I'm mixing all the dry ingredients, and be careful when you're mixing your dry ingredients. Make sure you're putting the yeast near the sugar, far from the salt. I like to bury my yeast in the flour just so it doesn't get any air and then go bad. I can tell you guys how to preserve your yeast so you're not using dead yeast for your donuts. If your yeast is dead, your donut is going to be dead. So make sure that your yeast is very active, and I can show you guys how to test your yeast to make sure that it's active. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to make a video about how I store and make sure my yeast stays active. When you're mixing, make sure you mix the part with the salt first, and then when you're done mixing it in, you can mix it up with the sugar and yeast. Yeast needs to stay very far away from salt. If not, it could actually die. Okay, I like to do this mixing first with my spatula before I put it in my mixing bowl, just so that I'm sure everything goes round, like there's no questions. Now, this is my heated up milk. I'm going to be putting my eggs in it. When you put the eggs, you're going to whisk your eggs and also add in your vanilla flavor. So all the liquids literally go in here. Whisk it very, very well, just like you're whisking your egg. You want to make sure that it's super smooth at the end of the whole thing. Now for my butter, I like to chop them into tiny pieces. And the reason why I do this is because when I'm putting my butter into the dough, like when it starts mixing, I really like to put it in bits, so that way it goes round and it's easy for the machine to actually break it down. So putting your butter in bits is very good. You don't want to put everything at once. Baking is about gradually developing stuff, right? So dry ingredients mixed up, wet ingredients mixed up, butter chopped up. Now we're ready to go into our baking. Now it's time to put it in our mixer. I like to use my mixer to make, this is my bread mixer, but I also use it for donuts. If you don't have a mixer, feel free to use your hands to knead. Make sure you're doing it on a very clean surface with flour as well. Once I put it in the bowl, I like to also let the machine just mix the dry ingredients. I mixed it with my spatula in the bowl, but I still like the machine to also do a little bit of mixing before I put in my wet ingredients. Now it's time to put in the milk, egg, and vanilla essence. Like I told you guys, gradual process is the best when you're baking. I put in my milk gradually. It's best to use a measuring cup for this because it has a spout for you to pour the milk without it spilling. So I keep putting my milk in bits. I just want the machine to take its time to, mix both ingredients, both the dry and the wet together. This process is like a romantic relationship, so make sure that everything gels together. Now we're done putting in all our wet ingredients. We're going to let this sit and mix for a bit. It's been mixing for 5 minutes at this time. It's time for me to put in my butter, so I increase the speed of the mixer, and then I put in my butter in tiny bits. Like I told you, I like to do things gradually, so just put in your butter in tiny bits. Let the machine do a good job at marrying all the ingredients together. So it's been 10 minutes since we started kneading this dough, and I just turned off the machine. I want the dough to rest. It's important to let your dough rest even during the mixing, because it just helps everything to ferment. It helps it to glutinise better. The texture comes out better. It's airier, it's fluffier when you let your dough actually rest, and the taste, it brings out everything. Like, it brings out the taste very well. It's been 2 minutes already, so now we're back to continue kneading. We have just 5 more minutes left, because I like to mix the entire thing for 15 minutes. So we'll see how the whole dough looks at the end of 15 minutes. Et voila, it's been 15 minutes and this is what our dough looks like. Just look at that dough. It already looks so elastic and nice. Now we're going to pull on it just to see. Can you see how elastic it is? We're now going to do the window pane test to see if our dough is passing the test or not. To do this test, just roll up a little part of the dough in a ball and try to stretch it out. If you're able to stretch it out to the most transparent part, like very, very much, and it doesn't break, it means that your dough is ready. Look at this dough, it's so elastic. I could pull it for days and it wouldn't tear. Now it's time to bring our dough out of the mixer and put it in a bowl. I'm going to put it in a bowl and I want you to proof. To proof your dough, you leave it covered in a warm place. For me, I'm going to be putting it in my oven because my oven has a setting. I'm going to put the bread proof setting on my oven, and as you can see, it's at 95 degrees. So you can put your oven at a very light, warm temperature for it to proof faster, especially if you live in a cold place like me. But if you live in a warm climate, you can just leave it out covered with a towel or a cling wrap. Now, I allowed my dough to proof for 30 minutes. That's the first proof. You're going to punch it in just so that all the air, and this dough actually doubled in size, so I'm going to punch it out so that all the air can come out, all the gas, so that way we're not having unnecessary swells in our donuts. Now it's time for us to start cutting and rolling up our donut. I'm going to be using my food scale once again. Now for me, I like to use 80 grams of dough to make my donuts. So we're going to cut up our dough and weigh it. If it's too much, all you have to do is take out some. If it's too little, all you have to do is add up some. At the end of the day, you want to get 80 grams per donut. After cutting and measuring everything, this is what it's going to look like. 1000 grams of flour makes about 24 donuts, an extra depending on how much it rises. I like to also put flour on my hands just to make sure that it doesn't stick when it's time to roll. Let's get into the rolling. So to roll, you want to make sure that you sort of round it up, just the way I'm doing in the video. When you start, it's not going to be perfect. Even for me, I still struggle, like, honestly. But the whole point is for you to round up the dough just the way I'm doing in the video. You want to make sure that you seal all the pockets at the back of the dough, so that way your donut is not going to have holes when you're frying it. Once you do that, you want to round it up on the mat or on your working surface. Roll it up, just make sure it's a little round. You can hit it on the surface as well, just to let out any air pockets. Okay. you finish molding up your donuts, it's best to put them on cut parchment papers, or you can buy the pre-cut ones just like I did, and make sure you sprinkle some flour on it so the donut doesn't stick on it as well. Then you cover it and make sure it doubles in size. This can take up to 15 minutes or more depending on how hot the room is. Now it's time to fry. The ones I put in the oven already proofed and they're already doubled in size. There are many ways you can test if your oil is hot enough, but first things first, you need to use lots of oil. Your oil needs to be a lot, and I like to use my thermometer to check the temperature. The ideal temperature for frying is from 175 degrees Celsius to 190 degrees Celsius. But for me, I like to start my frying at about 140 degrees Celsius so it can start cooking and catch up to the 170 degrees Celsius without actually being too hot or burning my donuts immediately I put them in the hot oil. If it's too hot, it's gonna get ready too fast, brown too fast, and the inside will not be done at all. So you need it to cook at a very right temperature. That's one of the hardest parts of frying donuts. So make sure that you're regulating your temperature. For drying my donuts, it's best to use paper towels to dry your donuts, or some napkins, like paper napkins. I double proofed mine by putting it on a wire rack as well. So now for the donuts, for you to check if the donuts are done, you can either use a kebab stick. I like to use my kebab stick to turn my donut and also to check if it's ready. Right, so once you put the kebab stick under the donut, it should tell you if your donut is ready or not. I don't like brown donuts. I like my donuts looking very light skin and very, very, cute. So I flipped my donut at this point. It's very easy to flip it. Look at what I'm doing in the video. You can also use your little sieve to do it as well, right? So once you flip your donuts, just make sure you're checking your temperature. You can reduce it for a bit because I'm sure at this point it's too hot. I told you guys I kept regulating throughout frying. So it was at 6. When I flipped it over, I changed it down to 4. At some point towards the end, I reduced it again when it was acting like it was too hot. So just keep checking the heat and keep regulating, okay? So now my donuts look like they are all done. I'm using the kebab stick to check the other side to see if it's ready to be taken out. I use my small spider strainer to actually take out my donuts. It's best to do it one after the other. Make sure you at least keep it on top of the oil for about 10 seconds to be able to dry out some of the oil. Then take it over to your paper towel or your paper napkins, whatever you're using. So you do this each, and you have to be very fast because at this point your donut is still frying. So it could easily get too brown underneath if you're not fast enough. When you're frying the second batch, you need to reduce the heat after you take out the first one because it tends to be too hot. So you can reduce it, and then once you put in your donuts, you increase the heat again. So this is my second batch of donuts, right? As you can see, they still retain the same color. If you want your donuts to be browner, you can fry on hotter heat. For me, I like my donuts very, very light, and I just feel like I don't like crunchy donuts, so that's why I make my donuts like this. But if you increase your heat and you let them stay for a little longer, they're going to be browner. So just increase your heat. That's the safest. Now we're taking this out, the same thing. Make sure it drains for at least 10 seconds on the heat before you take it out. Now all our donuts are ready. I put one batch back in the oven, the ones that were outside, because it hadn't proofed and doubled in size. It's a very important step in the process. I also don't need to put sugar or anything in mine, but if you want to put sugar, all you have to do is put some sugar in a small bowl, take the hot donut right out of the oil, dab it on both sides in the sugar. For jam, just dig a hole and put your jam in it. Now it's time for us to see what our donut feels like. Ooh, it looks so beautiful. It looks very, very soft and fluffy. Look at that white line. Look at this. Look at this. This is how it stays for days. Look at how soft and fluffy this donut is. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video and you're able to try out your donut at home. Anyways, let me know if you try it out, how it tastes. It's going to taste really yummy, but just let me know how it tastes. and also make sure you share this video, you like this video. If you've not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You better subscribe, because the next video coming out is going to be how I make my special fluffy agege bread. So follow me, subscribe to my channel. Anyways, enjoy your donuts, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.